welcome. This is our second webinar in the Designing Your Career Workshop series. So we're going to be talking about how to navigate your career change like the boss that you are, and really thinking about how to kind of make those decisions really effectively. So a couple of logistics, you can ask questions throughout the session using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen, and it's best to put all questions in the Q&A rather than the chat. We'll also take questions at the very end, and a recording will be emailed to you after the session. All right, so my name is Lauren Pizer. I am a co-founder at Pathstream and the VP of Learning Experience. And I am joined by Angela, who is also here from Pathstream. She is our lead instructor. She leads our Salesforce program, and she also is a user researcher at Pathstream. So wears many, many hats, but she'll be helping us present and answer questions tonight. All right, so today I want to talk about specific strategies for making your next career move. Last week, we did talk about making a career move as well, but this week we're going to go deeper into specific strategies and also help you to build confidence in your next career by helping you to kind of leverage your existing skill set for the future. So we're going to talk about exactly what I mean there, but you likely have a lot of existing skills that you can bring to your next role. And we're going to talk a little bit about ways to do that. So this is a great moment to be thinking about a career change. I presented some of these statistics 2 weeks ago, but this is what we call the year of the Great Resignation. So this is technically 2021, but I guarantee you 2022 is looking a lot like that right now if you look at the data. And what do I mean by the Great Resignation? Well, lots of people are unhappy and quitting their jobs. So 4.5 million employees quit their job this past November. And so far, these numbers are looking similar so far in January. 70% of American workers are not happy in their jobs, right? So there's a lot of unhappiness. People are leaving their roles. And at the same time, there's a lot of jobs that are still unfilled, right? There's a lot of open positions in the US right now. There's a record 10.9 million open jobs in July. And there will be 149 million new jobs by 2025. So people are reporting shortage of candidates. People are not loving their role. They're wanting to leave. And so we're creating this moment in time where it's a great time to consider making a career change if you're unhappy, if you're not in the right role for you. So because of all of this, we're seeing that Pathstream students are struggling with a couple of key questions. So 2 key questions that we're seeing. The first is, I think I'm interested in a new career, but I don't know how to get there based on where I am today. This is a common question. So for example, I'm interested in a career as a Salesforce administrator, but how do I get from my current role in customer service to becoming a Salesforce admin? So this is one major question that we see. Another question that we see is, can I really get a new role without any past experience? So can I really become a Salesforce administrator without any past experience in Salesforce? So we're going to tackle both of these questions today. But before I do that, I want to know, are you all experiencing any of these questions? So I'm going to launch a quick poll question. And I want to know which questions, if any, are you currently facing with regards to your career change? So for example, are you interested in a new career, but not really sure how to get there? Do you feel like, I don't know if I can get a role without past experience? Where are you in terms of these 2 questions? I'll give you another 5 seconds to get some of your answers in. So much good participation. Wow. I love this. Already over 60% of participants have responded to this. Okay. I'm going to end this poll and I'm going to share the results with you all. So looks like most people are experiencing both of these 2 questions, which means you're in the right place. And some people are struggling with a totally different question, which I hope we get to today, later in the night. But thank you for answering me. So I'm glad we're on the right track. You're in the right place. And tonight, we're going to focus on these 2 questions in a little bit more detail, right? So let's start with the first one. I think I'm interested in a new career, but how do I get there based on where I am today? So I got a step-by-step process here for you. The first step I want to talk about is I want you to make sure that you fully understand where you think you want to go in your career and what that career entails. So this is a point in the presentation where I talk about knowledge being power, right? Knowing kind of what the possible options are, what those options are like is the absolute first thing that you should be doing. So specifically what I mean by that is I need you to be able to answer certain questions about any new career you might consider, whether that's project manager or data analyst or IT coordinator, like whatever it is. I need you to be able to answer, what is a day in the life like for that role? What do people do? What skills do people in these roles have? How have other people broken into the field, right? You're not the first person, you're not going to be the first person that tries to get, a data analyst job with no experience. So how did other people do it, right? Was it through education, through past experience? Was it just through luck, right? A lot of people, it's honestly through luck for a lot of people. So I want you to answer these questions. And there are a couple of ways that you can answer this. So I'm not going to send you out and say, go figure this out yourself, but you are going to have to do some research and some work. So one of the first ways that you can think about, the answers to this question are through internet research. So I'm going to specifically show you a couple of examples of what's out there on the internet. So the first is a website from Trailhead, and maybe you guys have heard of this. I'll have Angela put this link in the chat if she can. But this is an amazing research or amazing resource from Trailhead. So if you scroll down here, Trailhead, which is Salesforce's learning platform, shows so many different roles and exactly what they entail in Salesforce. Now, I'm not saying that you have to become a Salesforce administrator. I'm just giving you an example of what is one kind of website that exists out there, right? Just shows you, what is the average salary, the type of growth, the type of roles that are under this category, right? So this is just one of the great resources that exists out there. There are resources like this for data, for digital marketing, but I just wanted to show you one for Salesforce. Another website I want to introduce you to is a website called, let me scroll to the top, it's called Worthy. So Worthy, you need to make a free account on here to get the most bang from your buck. But what it is it kind of shows you the skills that are needed to build for certain roles. So I really like this site. If you kind of scroll down, you can get a little taste of it. So for example, let's say you're interested in something like a financial role, like a financial management role. You can see here that it's giving you a lot of profile information about this role. It's going to take a minute to load here, but you get a lot of information on kind of roles that are open, major employers for the role, different job postings that exist, and some of the skills that are required for this kind of a role. So these are two resources that I'm just giving you a taste of what's out there on the internet to help you to understand what these different roles entail and what these different options look like, because it's so important that you start with a clear understanding of possible career areas. And last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about ways to uncover your interests. So I'm not going to go over all of that today, right? How to kind of identify what career areas might be right. We have a recording on that that's on our YouTube page. But once you've got some ideas of what could be interesting to you, you need to explore it with research. So other ways you can explore are through listening to podcasts, watching videos on YouTube. There's so much content out there on YouTube and TikTok. Enrolling in some free or very low cost mini courses that show you more about the field. There are virtual online events that help you to kind of understand what's going on in different industries. And then something I mentioned last time was informational interviews. This really helps you to understand a career that you might want to go into. So what am I talking about with an informational interview? So an informational interview is a 20-minute conversation with a professional to learn about their role and their story, basically, to see if they have any advice for someone like you that's trying to do what they've done, right? Break into the data analysis field, totally change careers. So it's an opportunity for you to gather data and gather information to help you make your next career move. Now, the concept of an informational interview is something that I'm actually going to be talking about in 2 weeks. And this is something I go a lot in depth on because it's a really interesting area. So I'm not going to go into a lot of depth on it right now, but this is a tool that you can use and take sort of with you as a way to learn about something new and get curious. It's not about asking for a job. So for those of you on this call that have actually heard of informational interviews, they're not about asking for a job. And that's kind of a big reframe that I like to talk about. They're actually about figuring out and learning and building your network. And so in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing a session on informational interviews, and I'd love for you to sign up. But this is one way that you can explore a career field and understand if it's right for you, which is really the first step that I'm talking about. So once you've understood, what does this role entail, it's time for you to start considering these stepping stone jobs or other opportunities that you're going to need to do in order to break into your career. Okay, so I'm going to have Angela talk a little bit about what do I mean when I say a stepping stone job, because this is a new concept for probably everybody on this call.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So a stepping stone role, I'm not sure if this is a Googleable term, we might just use it at Pathstream, but a stepping stone job is really what I kind of consider as a kind of transition role before you make the transition role. So this could look like a job, an internship, projects, freelance experience that get you closer to that role that you're really targeting and kind of have up on your vision board. So sometimes these roles are kind of that interim step, like I was saying, to get to your dream career. They might not be kind of every aspect of your dream role, but they're really the kind of core thing about these stepping stone roles is that they're enabling you to build skills to put on your resume and speak to during interviews with hiring managers. So you can say, hey, I've done some of this stuff in my previous role. So again, those stepping stone roles are kind of like an interim transitional type of role. So to walk through a couple of examples, these are just a couple of examples that we've pulled for some of our different certificate areas. I don't want you to think of this as like the only options that you have for stepping stone roles. Again, these are just a couple of examples of what one pathway could look like. So let's say that you're a retail associate trying to get into a Salesforce career. Just hit next, Lauren. So one role here that is really helpful for getting towards Salesforce administration is sales operations specialist. So what you might kind of notice here is that this isn't like a Salesforce administrator role, but these types of roles help you kind of get Salesforce experience while still leveraging some of your background. So retail associates do a lot of sales. They're familiar with the sales process. They maybe work frontline to work to make those sales. And so you can say, hey, I'm a retail associate. I have this experience doing this kind of work, and I'm really qualified for this sales operations specialist role. And I would really like to use Salesforce in this role. So then if you want to hit the next one, when you're ready for that kind of bigger step towards administration, you can lean on your experience that you gained as a sales operations specialist, where you kind of had some of the sales from your prior world and your prior background and have some of that new Salesforce administration work. And so you can kind of create a narrative for yourself.
So I think, Angela, one thing I want to add is that some people coming in here, they might say like, okay, I want that data analyst role, or I want that Salesforce admin role today. And the short answer is that you might be able to get that role today, but you might not, because you might need to take what we call those stepping stone jobs in order to get up to that level you want to get to. And so in this example, you can see that the sales ops specialist is a role that you might see out there on Indeed or LinkedIn. And that is what we would consider a stepping stone job. It's a little easier to get than the Salesforce admin role. But if you can get that, you can leverage it to get that next role that you really want.
Yeah, exactly. And just to that point, what you're trying to do is get as much experience on your resume as possible to show employers that you can do that Salesforce administration work. So another example that we can walk through is, let's say that you're an administrative assistant. Lauren, if you want to hit next. So let's say that your kind of dream career is to become a data analyst. So whether, depending on what your prior kind of experience is, you may be able to get directly into that data analyst role. But again, you might want to take one of these stepping stone jobs that help you along the journey. So this might look like a junior data analyst, data entry specialist, business operations specialist. So there's kind of a lot of options here to get towards data analyst. So one thing that I want to point out with this is it takes a little bit of like, I think kind of some like career creativity to kind of poke around on these job boards and like really kind of dig into those job descriptions and see like, okay, is this stepping stone role going to get me the experience that's going to help me get to my ultimate goal of becoming a data analyst or a Salesforce administrator? So it kind of takes a little bit more of that research, digging, talking to folks, seeing what kinds of stepping stone jobs they maybe had to make their transition. So again, a little bit of creativity, lots of conversations can kind of help you chart this path for yourself. And then to walk through just one more example. So let's say that you're a customer service representative. Lauren, if you could hit next. And then you want to get into, say, some kind of digital marketing career. So a couple of roles that this might look like: digital marketing assistant, social media intern, marketing and operations associate. So all of these roles are going to give you exposure to digital marketing careers, the skills that you need, kind of on that journey towards getting to that dream career. Cool. Stepping stone jobs don't just look like jobs or full-time roles. They could look like internships. They could look like freelance projects. So one thing you can kind of do is take a look at Upwork, Catchafire, Fiverr. These are all places where you can source project-based short-term work. It may or may not be paid. You could also do volunteer projects, different kind of projects in your current role. So this is a really great opportunity where you can kind of go to your manager and say, hey, I'm really interested in XYZ thing. Is there any way that I can kind of work on a project outside of my tradition, like my kind of full-time regular role, so I can get more experience in this realm? And then you can also do passion projects, if your friends have small businesses, if you've got family members you want to support, or just kind of pursuing it solo. This is something that's really common with data analysis because a lot of kind of open source data sets. So really just kind of finding ways to give yourself experience, again, stepping stone experience, jobs, whatever you want to call it, towards that dream career.
And I think something that might come up here is like, well, what about like other, tests like the Salesforce exam or the CAPM exam or these types of certification exams? Those are great. And I'm not going to say that they're not a stepping stone example, because they are, but sometimes you need a little bit more than just a certification or an exam in order to kind of push you into that stepping stone role.
Yeah, I think, again, like the key that I want to emphasize here is it's experience, right? You want to get experience. So when you're in those interviews, you can say, hey, I actually did a project really similar to this in my role as, an operations associate that I think will really help me in becoming a project manager or a data analyst. So experience is really, really key. And then step 3 in this kind of journey towards getting towards your career is actually determining, once you've decided on where you want to go, what potential stepping stone roles there are. Step 3 is to determine what skills you want to actually kind of commit to start building to get towards those stepping stone jobs. Cool. So there's a couple of different ways that this can look like. Obviously at Pathstream, we're a big fan of education. So education programs are a really great kind of structured way to approach building those skills. There's different trainings. We offer certificate programs. There's different online courses, free courses. There's kind of no shortage for, skills learning out there. But what this takes is really just like a commitment, like a clear commitment to kind of taking the time to build out these skills before you get into that stepping stone role. One important note, I'm sure there's a couple of folks on the call on the webinar today that don't have college degrees. This is not a blocker. You can absolutely break into one of these digital skills careers without a college degree, but the skill building itself is really important and the experience is really important. So you need to be able to kind of go to an employer and say, while I don't have a college degree, I have done a ton of learning on this subject, and I also have done a couple of projects and things like that. Cool. Awesome. And then again, to the point about projects are really kind of the A+ way that you can get that experience and just start practicing and building out your talking points. Again, you can do this with projects at your current company. You can go to your manager and say, hey, I'd like to, work on this thing. Side note, I actually did that with Lauren with user research, and I do a lot of user research, so it very much works. You can also do freelance projects at different companies outside of your current company, volunteer projects, solo projects. Pathstream's courses, our projects are really, really focused on real world skills. So that's another way you can get project experience. But I'm hoping that you're starting to see that there's a lot of different ways that you can start to build these skills. Just take some commitment, maybe a little bit of time. Yeah.
Awesome. But Angela, I just realized that is a really good example. Like we were working together on Salesforce, our Salesforce certificate, and you came to me and said that you wanted to get better at user research and potentially at some point in the future change careers into user research. And we've figured out projects that she could do that were aligned with that learning, and some online like courses and resources that she could leverage. And it happened. And I don't think every employer is necessarily going to be open to that, but it really is not harmful to ask, right? There's really no downside to just asking to get more involved in your job, right? In other areas of the business. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if it's not, oops, sorry, just one point about that is even if it's not even getting on a project, you can always informational interview with folks that are in your dream role at your current company. You can say, hey, I am so interested in this. I'd love to just sit down and talk. So that's one kind of really great networking resource, is talk to folks within your company, your existing network, to just chat about those new roles.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Angela. All right. So the fourth step here is, once you understand kind of where you're going and what that role entails, you've thought about these stepping stone jobs, right? These types of opportunities that are going to get you to where you want to go. And then you started in step 3, thinking about the skills that you need to start building up to those stepping stone jobs, right? Okay, I need to learn this XYZ. I can do that through projects, sort of figuring that out. You need to create a plan for yourself, right? Because all this is in your head until you can actually put it into a place where you can start looking at it and visualizing it, and it feels more real. So what do I mean by a plan? So here's an example from the Salesforce administrator example that Angela gave. So if you're a retail associate and you want to become a Salesforce administrator, you may have to accept that sales ops specialist stepping stone job to help you build skills. Now, you could potentially get that job, go straight from retail associate to sales ops, right? Maybe. But you might also need a program. So Pathstream comes in here, right? You could learn these skills sort of online without a program if you wanted. But I'm biased, but I think Pathstream is one of the best ways to learn online. And so you might need Pathstream to bump you up to the Salesforce operations specialist role. And then when you want to get to Salesforce admin, there's other things you're going to need to do. You're going to, for example, need to take that Salesforce admin exam. You might need a year or a year and a half of work experience as an operations specialist. And then while you're working as a sales ops specialist, you want to get mentorship. You want to network. You want to really get into the world of Salesforce in order to get you to that next level. Here's another example. So let's take data analyst as an example here. Let's say you're an administrative assistant right now. In order to get to that stepping stone job, you might need a certificate program. You might just need to talk to your company about taking on data related projects like data entry or just anything related to spreadsheets, right? Or SQL. So that can be a conversation you have with your current company. Or you might want to go out there and get some freelance projects. Maybe your sister's boyfriend works for a company that needs somebody to do some data entry or light data analysis. Maybe that's something that you can experiment with for free or for a low cost, right? Just to get your hands dirty with this so that you can leverage that for a junior data analyst position, a data entry specialist, a business operations specialist, right? These are kinds of roles you could look at online. Now, let's say you're ready, you got that stepping stone job and you're ready to take the leap to data analyst, right? You might need that work experience under your belt. Maybe you want to take another training program, right? Maybe another education program to help you with that boost. There's maybe data analyst passion projects that you take on in your own time. If there's any data analysts on this call, you probably know that a lot of analysts, they take on passion side projects all the time, right? And there's actually a ton of places to do this online. But maybe you need to take on a passion project really to bump yourself up to data analyst. But this is an example of a plan that you need to sit down and think through for yourself, because it's not enough to have it in your head. It needs to be on paper. It needs to be somewhere visual that you can refer back to and change over time, because plans do change. So these are the 4 steps that we talked about. Now, I want to make sure that I answer any questions that you have about this particular question, but I also want to move on to the next question, which is, can I get a new career or a new job without past experience? So if you got any questions about that first one here, make sure that's in the chat or make sure it's in the Q&A and we'll get to it. But I want to move on to the second question, which is, can I really get a role as a project manager without any past experience? And the short answer, hopefully you're happy about this, is yes, absolutely. You can get a new job without past experience. I have been helping students to do this for, I don't know, at least 7 or 8 years at this point. This is absolutely possible, but I will tell you it's not the bad news, but it's the other side of the coin, right? Which is that you're likely going to need to do a couple of things. You're going to need to commit to education or training in some form. It could be self-taught. Okay. I've seen a lot of people be successful in that. It could be something organized if that's not really the best way for you to learn. You might need to accept that stepping stone opportunity first, as we talked about. And you may need to spend more time than the average person networking and looking for work. Okay, I talk to a lot of people and they have to spend, if they have no prior experience, they have to spend more time than somebody with experience. That's just how it is. But there's a lot to be learned through this process. So it's not for waste, right? Learning how to network and learning how to talk to people about their career is really valuable. You're also going to need to, this is really important, you're going to need to repackage your existing skills for your future career. So some of you on this call have 10 years of experience doing something else. Some of you might not have prior experience, but I guarantee you've done something before you got on this call that would help you with your future career. So what do I mean by this? So I need you to learn, and we're going to go through this today, how to repackage your existing skill set. Here's what I mean by that. This means looking back at your previous jobs and the things that you've done in your past and picking out and emphasizing the skills that you can transfer to your new career. So these are skills that you have already that are relevant to your next job. And then it's emphasizing them on your resume, on your LinkedIn, and in interviews. Okay? Because a lot of people say, I don't have any past experience. And I guarantee you, you do. But you need to find ways to put it in the forefront and show people that you actually have it. So a few things about this. So repackaging your skills is sometimes referred to as like finding transferable skills or identifying portable skills. And examples of these skills that you're going to need to repackage are things like communication skills, relationship building, attention to detail, organization, working with teams, right? Like these are skills that are kind of in every job, honestly. And if you can figure out how you've used these skills in the past and show an employer that you have them, then you're 10 steps ahead of everybody else. So the best way to illustrate this is through an example. Okay, I love learning through examples. I think it's the best way to learn. So let's do a case study here. So this is Jamie. She has 5 years of experience in retail. And she wants to move from a retail associate to a project manager. So she needs to identify the transferable skills from her 5 years in retail so that she can look and feel like a project manager on her resume and her LinkedIn. So this is Jamie's resume. So she has these 4 bullet points on her resume from being a retail associate at Walmart in New York. She maintains an inventory of over 500 items, supporting ordering of new inventory. She interfaces with customers to identify purchase needs, resolve issues, and direct them to appropriate departments. She maintains and organizes store displays for product visibility, and she trains new employees to uphold company policies and customer satisfaction. So these are some of the things she does. Now, she ends up looking at project management jobs. So she does her research, right, which you talked about. She is talking to people, she's looking online, she's doing her desk research, she's looking at YouTube videos, and she figures out that project management involves a lot of attention to detail, working across multiple teams or collaboration, creating and managing projects effectively, and communicating effectively. It requires, sometimes you see job postings and they say, you need to know Jira, or you need to know Asana, or you need to know all these other tools, right? That's something that she can build through an education program, but we're going to focus on the soft skills and the really important skills that are on these job descriptions. So she has experience in these areas, actually, because she knows that she has attention to detail. She knows that she knows how to communicate, right? But her resume doesn't really position it in the best way possible. So she needs to go to her resume and pull out these past skills from her job. So she looks at her resume and she sees that this thing about maintaining inventory is attention to detail. You need attention to detail to be able to maintain inventory of 500 products. When she works with customers on a day-to-day basis, that is collaboration, right? When she organizes store displays, that's planning, that's organization, that's attention to detail. And when she trains new employees, that is actually effective communication. But when she thinks about this a little bit more, she realizes that she does a lot of management and she does a lot of communication in her training, but that's not necessarily represented by this bullet point here. So I talk to students all the time, and I often say, do you have any experience planning events, right? Because for whatever reason, that's something that their new job entails. And when I look at their resume, there's not a thing about events on there. But when I ask them about it, they almost always can come up with an example of a time when they did that in their job, even though it wasn't on their resume. So here, Jamie's seeing that like she actually can communicate effectively, but she doesn't really have that explicitly on her resume. So what she's going to do is she's going to go through each one of these bullet points and she's going to reposition them to be more aligned with what project managers need, the skills they need. So her first bullet point about maintaining inventory of over 500 products, she's going to change that bullet point because she wants to accentuate attention to detail. And she's going to say that she manages the inventory and ordering for over 500 items. She places and tracks weekly orders, resulting in 0 out of stock items while on shift. This is not that different from what she has already, but it up levels it, right? It takes it a level up. It shows accomplishments. It shows numbers, which people like to see on resumes. And it shows that, oh, wow, she had 0 out of stock items while on shift. That's a lot of attention to detail to do that. The next one, collaboration, right? Interfacing with customers. She's going to rewrite this. And she's going to talk about how she collaborates with customers to resolve issues, communicate resolutions to management, and identify creative solutions to ensure a customer satisfaction rating of 96%. So she's bringing in some numbers here, right? She might have to dig deep and be like, oh gosh, do I have any number that I can show about my customer satisfaction rating, how much people like me, right? She found something, but you want to build up, right? She's building up what she's done and she's putting more emphasis on it and she's really showcasing herself in the best possible light. All right, the third one is about, she had wrote about organizing store displays, right? That shows a lot of planning and attention to detail. So she's going to rewrite this one to accentuate that more. She's going to say co-create, organize, and execute monthly store displays involving over 20 products, which enhance product visibility and align with brand guidelines and requirements. This is just more, right? It's better. It sounds better. It sounds more project managing, right? It sounds more professional. And so this is something that, sometimes you need the help of someone else to do this, but you all are capable of this, and you all have these items on your resume that just can be lifted up, right? They can be given more emphasis and more accentuation. All right, so here's the last one. So this one's about providing training, right? Which is a skill, a really important skill, but she wants to take this bullet point and accentuate effective communication, because she knows that's important. So she says, lead new employee trainings for up to 20 store associates, update written training materials, and communicate changes in company policy and process to new employees. Not all that different, but much more detailed, more specific, and more, focused on that communication. So this is her new resume now. So it looks much, I don't know, I mean, I like it better. It looks a lot more numbers oriented, accomplishment focused. It accentuates skills in a lot more detail that can align with the job description that she's applying to with project manager. So you can't, she can't redo her whole resume to say that she was actually a project manager. That's not true, right? But she can position her past role as a retail associate in the best possible light. And that's what she did here. So just a little recap of what we've done and what I'm talking about. So when you're thinking about a career move, you need to repackage and rewrite your past experiences that show that you have some of the skills for your new job, for your new role. This is a must. You have to do this. And this will require you to take an inventory of your past experiences. That might mean writing out every job you've ever held, right? And thinking about like, okay, when did I do attention to detail? When did I do any sort of data entry, right? When did I do anything with spreadsheets? And just going back and accentuating that in your resume and in your LinkedIn and when you talk to people for interviews. And this is what I'm talking about when I say using transferable skills, repackaging your skills. This is what it is. So today we tackled these two questions, right? I think I'm interested in this new career, but I don't know how to get there, right? And we also tackled the question, can I really get a new role without past experience? Now, I could have spent hours on each of these questions, and I'm wanting you to walk away with really specific frameworks and specific strategies that you can use. So I think a really valuable next step at this point in the presentation is I want to turn us over to some of that Q&A. So I want you to get your questions ready. If Angela is doing a fabulous job answering questions in the chat. If you have a clarifying question, you put that in the Q&A. If you have a new question, you put that in the Q&A, and we're going to get to it live in a couple of minutes. Before I get to those questions, here are 6 more workshops we have coming up. My favorite one is coming up on the 16th, networking informational interviews. Please sign up. I've talked about that in the last 2 sessions we've done together. If you want to learn more about our programs, go to pathstream.com/programs. You can also email one of our enrollments advisors. So there's an anonymous question in here about, or I think it was answered actually, but it was about wanting to kind of test out our content a little bit more. If you have any questions like that, email enrollments@pathstream.com and we'll be in touch with you.